We're just having a laugh over here, remembering the time that Deshaun Jackson tweeted, thanks to Whoopi Goldberg when he was on The View. Anyway, much to come on this Eagles Commanders preview. The professor, Deniz Selman, is in studio, and the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, wants to talk birds, so we're going to let him do it. It's all coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Thursday afternoon. Bo Wolf, the professor, Deniz Selman in the middle, Zach Berman on the end. We are here to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders, and it's all presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. We have the Eagles' first repeat game of the season to discuss. NFC East-clinching opportunity for the team. We're going to talk about all that. And in the middle of this show, we're going to talk about it with Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. Zach, I know you're excited.
Oh, yes. Anytime you can have someone.
You got your best posture ready to go.
No, I was excited to speak with Governor Shapiro. I was excited to talk Eagles with him. I like to say I don't get political, but I do get parochial. Right. And so I appreciate the fact that that seems like an insincere laugh at a sincere comment. It was a fun conversation. And
I get that a lot too, Zach, just so you know.
Yeah. And then it's thrilling to be next to Professor Selman because often on Fridays I'm over at the facility and I see you on the screen. So it's great to be here in studio.
It's too bad now. Full disclosure, the conversation with Josh Shapiro happened before this episode, so we're going to bring it to you. But unfortunately, we forgot to ask. This could have been the person for us to go to, Deniz, to see if there's anything we could do about your bike.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. My bike got stolen at the last Eagles game, and I was pissed.
Well, you know what
I park it right next to, like, a swarm of cops right next to the stadium. And when I called the Eagles, they were like, "Oh, there's no cameras there. We don't know what happened." So, I've only been a season ticket holder for 25 years and, biked every game for a decade. There was no reason for them.
You were due then.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Statistically
that's
speaking.
True.
Right?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
I had my bike stolen once. Haven't gotten a bike since. Tough.
Yeah. So you can't let the terrorists win. You got to just keep buying new bikes and getting them stolen. So, yeah, that's just the way.
There we go.
Cycle of life. No, there are worse things that happen to people. I'm fortunate enough to be able to afford a new bike, and life goes on. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Big game for the Eagles on Sunday, Professor. But as for last Sunday, anything from the offensive change that was particularly interesting to you?
I mean, throwing the ball down the field was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was awesome. The empty stuff, I almost mentioned on the show last week, and I wish I had. Not that I was expecting it, but that there's just been so little empty this year.
It's crazy when you looked at it.
Just,
the snaps per game.
Know how good Devontae Smith has been out of empty, playing in the slot. Like I remember you were talking a lot about that. 2 years ago, especially, but continued a little bit last year. The empty usage in this game was awesome. Pre-snap coverage tells. And when you get those pre-snaps tells, it's not as simple as if it's man, throw it to AJ. If it's zone, Devontae Smith will get open.
Right.
It's not quite that simple.
But it's almost.
I mean, in this game, there were 14 actual throws against man. 10 of them went to AJ.
Okay.
This includes ones negated by penalty and everything, so it might not match the stats exactly. Nobody else had more than 3. 10 go to AJ out of the 14. And then you look at...
Well, nobody else had more than 3 targets in the whole game aside from the 2 guys.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. And then you look at... Devontae didn't either.
Sure.
And then 18 actual throws against zone, and 9 of those go to Devontae Smith.
I like those numbers.
After the game, Devontae Smith said that it was like cover 2 every third down, and knowing what they were in was a big part of the success.
Interesting
in the game. So that was a big part of it. And then when you look at the way
I do love just how that I'm sorry, I love how that tracks with their two skill sets. If you just think about it, like AJ Brown, like there's no man in the world who could cover AJ Brown. So if you're gonna put a man on him, throw him the ball. And then Devontae, we know that he has this superpower of manipulating space. He understands spacing better than anybody else. And so if it is zone, you would trust Devontae Smith to be the guy who knows exactly where to be.
Absolutely. And, that play, the drive play that Fran discussed as well, they ran it 4 times out of the exact same formation. And in the first half, there were 2 examples where it was clearly man pre-snap, and it just went to AJ against Joey Porter. And then when it was zone, he hit Devontae on the crosser. Now, at some point, teams will begin to start disguising that. And that did happen on the lost fumble, right? So the lost fumble is a play that is probably worth discussing. Got a pre-snap read of man. It was EJ. It wasn't empty, but it was EJ Jenkins on one side and all 3 wide receivers on the other. And both corners were over with the receivers, and they had the linebacker Patrick Wilson lined up against EJ Jenkins. So it looked like it was man coverage. Now, they also only had 3 linemen on the field. There were only 10 guys on the field. The 11th guy was jumping on and off the field. Now,
and Jalen bails a little early.
Right. So what happens there is they have a mesh call thinking that it's man coverage with EJ Jenkins rubbing for AJ. Now, they drop into a cover 2, so the mesh isn't there. And because they don't have the 11th defender on the field, one of the gaps is just wide open. Brilliant defense by the Steelers, really. I mean, their best defensive call of the game. The 10-man cover 2. Yeah, it was great. It completely baited Jalen to scramble. And then, because his finger's broken, he has the ball in the wrong hand, which
I know talked about yesterday.
I heard him talk about it yesterday, and I was really curious after the game when he said, it affected my play, what he was talking about. That's probably the main thing it affected, is that he can't carry the ball
he can't bring it on the outside arm,
That's kind of a problem, but
I was surprised that he gave that away. Or not that he gave that away, but that he was admitting it. Now, we've talked in the past, Jalen likes a little myth making, so he doesn't mind saying something if it will and make him look tougher. But I thought that was an interesting admission.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to jump to negatives right away because it was a very positive. It was a very positive game. But that type of thing where you're repeating the same play over and over will eventually. And that wasn't exactly the same play, but they did that disguised zone man disguise against that drive concept later in the game as well. Destroyed the blitz in the first half. I don't know if this has gotten enough attention. We talked before the game about how they were high volume man blitz in 2022 and how they probably wouldn't do that this time. They blitzed 7 times in the first half. I'm not counting when 5 D linemen in base rush, just real blitzes, 7 times in the first half. 4 of them were the big blitzes that you've been waiting for, Bo, because they do green dog. So they had 4 times they rushed 6 guys. 7 blitzes, Jalen 7 for 7, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 to AJ, 3 to Devontae. 2 of them out of that empty formation. So they showed that they could beat the blitz in the first half. That discouraged blitz in the second half. They were mostly just in cover 2, like Devontae was saying, and that's when they hit them with the zone beaters, the smash concept, things like that. And it's nice that you have answers to those kinds of things. The one thing that I think kind of happened in the game was they kind of ran out of plays. I don't think they were expecting to be out there for 80 plays. And the run wasn't working that well. And so at some point you're just okay, let's just run that drive concept again. And by the end, the Steelers had answers. So I don't know if that's a deep cause for concern going forward, but it is the kind of thing that some of the film grinder types, like the J.T. O'Sullivans, the Sean Syeds, both had vocal complaints about this offense really is starting to repeat these plays. And that's kind of what I was thinking as well. If that game had gone on for another half, that stuff would have stopped working, So. But we're being nitpicky. It was a great performance, obviously.
Yeah, I would hope that that's not just their entire playbook. But it is weird that they can't just expand beyond what they have in their weekly game plan.
Yeah, we still just haven't seen it all come together schematically, right? So there was a lot of good empty this game, but there was almost no play action. You know what I mean? I know there were a couple of plays of play action. The counter action play was nice. The touchdown was play action, but it's almost like they can't quite. It's like they have to focus on one thing, and the watering the garden statement by Jalen, it's like they can only work on the run or the pass each week. I mean, obviously he's simplifying there, but this idea that you can't just be ready to do all of them at once. Now, when you're winning every game, it's like you might not be forced to, right? But when you face like a Brian Flores in the playoffs or something like that, you might be having to like try different things during the game. So
yeah, I mean they punted once. They had 1 3 and out all game. Like it was working. So I agree. You want more diversity in your scheme, but when it's working like that, and you hit it on the head in terms of empty. I asked Jalen about what he likes about empty. He says completions. He says they're definitely on to something.
Passing.
Yeah. So I think it's a look they should use more often. Now there are certain teams where they have more depth at corner. The reality is they're not passing it to the 3rd and 4th guy anyways, the Eagles, right? So if a team's better, you don't like to spread a team out that's so deep at corner, but you're really only focused on the looks that Jalen and AJ are getting. You're not as focused on how someone's covering Johnny Wilson or Jahan Dotson. So I would be in favor of them doing this more often.
Johnny Wilson, who is like kind of a tight end now.
Not a very good one. I mean, I do wonder if like when he's attached to the line and has to not let anyone inside him.
Yeah.
Like that's something where it seems like an easy assignment, right? It's like counter run to the other side. All he has to do is not let Highsmith inside him. But he failed on those kinds of things 2 times in the first half, and then they kind of stopped using him in that role.
I
understand. You want that diversity. You want to stay in the same personnel grouping.
Callback because like a guy who's a really good blocker for a wide receiver, you think, oh, he could just be a tight end. But then once you make him a tight end, he's not that good of a blocker for a tight end.
Right. No, that's right. And the run game was kind of not very good in general. Tyler Steen definitely had some issues against Cam Hayward after he came in. He had a couple of holding penalties as well.
You know who's never had a problem with Cam Hayward? Michael Dunn, Pancake City.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The famous pancake playoff game.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Let's wind the clock back 4 or 5 weeks to when the Commanders and the Eagles played, and that was a game in which Jalen Hurts was 18 of 28 for 221 yards, but this was a big Saquon Barkley game.
Yeah,
26 for 146 and 2 touchdowns. What was that matchup like schematically?
It was the famous Jahan Dotson orbit motion package game. 5 times they ran that play.
The famous one. Everyone around the NFL knows it as that.
5 different plays.
First play of the game.
It's 10% of the plays, Zach. There's a lot of Jahan Dotson orbit. The run game did not get going early in that game. Mekhi Becton struggled some against Daron Payne. There were several moments of those. It's Thursday night football, and these teams clearly haven't practiced moments. 2 guys running into each other on mesh. There was an RPO where Jalen pulled the ball to throw it, and no one was running a route. Like every single person was just blocking. We didn't really see things like that in any other games. I think that's just like Thursday night stuff. Jake Elliott missed 2 field goals and an extra point, all in the same direction. So there was no cause for concern in that one. And then we had the 4 big runs that everyone will remember late in that game: the double trap and the wham trap with Kenny Gainwell, followed by the 2 long touchdowns by Saquon. One was on a split zone, one was on an under center toss where Cam Jurgens blocked the Percy Butler 2 times on the play. So that was incredible at the end. But remember, the Eagles were down in the 4th quarter. Like it was a close game, even though it seemed like the Eagles were the better team throughout. And relating it to what just happened against the Steelers, there was only 1 snap of empty in that game from the Eagles, and that's kind of what it had been going in. And that was on a 3rd and forever just to get a little closer for a field goal. Now, since then, did you have anything else on to talk about for that game? Since then, I'll just talk about a couple of changes for Washington on defense. The biggest one, I think, is that Marshawn Lattimore, who was on the team then but hadn't played yet because he was injured, is finally healthy enough to play. He made his debut last week in New Orleans against his old team, and he wasn't targeted a single time. Now, I mean, the Saints don't really have a quarterback. That's probably one of the reasons, but they did make a schematic change where Lattimore just played on the right side. And he just stayed on the right side the whole game.
Okay,
with the rookie Mike Sanderstill playing on the left.
Zach's boy,
good player.
I thought Jameson Crowder was Zach's boy. That was like the big.
Zach's got a lot of boys.
Yeah, the big go-to for later in the show. It's got a lot of boys. I can't pronounce this guy's name. The nickel, Noah Igbenogene.
Yeah, former first-round pick.
Yeah, he was the nickel here.
Jaden Daniels.
He was the nickel here. And he's still the nickel, but Benjamin Saint-Just, who was starting when they came to Philly is now basically on the bench. Now,
quick Benjamin St. Just question. I don't mean to interject.
No.
Can you
Une question.
Can you name the Eagle who has a Benjamin St. Just jersey in his locker from the Jersey Exchange? Do you know the answer to this?
Slay.
No. When you hear it, it would make a lot of sense.
Another French guy?
What?
Well, you're focused on the origin of the name and not the origin on the passport, or not the country on the passport.
Oh, I see.
What?
Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown has Benjamin St. Just's jersey in his locker. 2 Canadian defensive backs in the NFL.
There you go. No. That's a good nugget.
I just like to bring people inside the room whenever I can. You know, as a son of a Canadian, my mom has never talked like that in her life. That thing you did. No, my mom for 38 years. I joke with her about her Canadian accent, but she's never gone like that. So yeah, I think that's something we need to kind of eliminate from the lexicon.
No.
All right, proceed.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I'll proceed. So Zach's other boy, Emmanuel Forbes, was on the team then as well, but he no longer is. This just isn't gonna end, is it? When's that Shapiro?
Not soon enough.
So hoping like during Shapiro maybe he forgets about this. But yeah, so they were playing.
Comment dit-on Dylan McMahon?
You know, I was wondering before the show. I was like, should we get to the governor at the top? And it's like, no, we have real important things to discuss.
No, we need the governor to break this up. I mean,
people in the chat extremely curious if the governor is going to weigh in on the sitting to pee debate, but I think that part might have been cut.
Yeah, for the minions, let's say it was cut. If that question came up to the governor of Pennsylvania, I think I would have walked out of the interview in shame. Like, you know, I think there is a certain decorum that one needs to operate with. So yes.
Should I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The main thing that Lattimore joining this defense does is it gives them 2 competent outside corners, right? They just didn't have that before. And when you look at Sanders still in that first game, there were a lot of times where he was matched up. He was playing to the field side in that game. There were a lot of times he was matched up against A.J. Brown. It looked like there wasn't really safety help. And from the stands, I was like, man, got to pick on the rookie. And it just didn't really happen. And the one time they did kind of throw at him, he made a great play in the end zone against Devontae Smith.
That's right.
He's a very good player. And I know Fran's a big fan of his as well. So they have 2 good outside corners.
Franra still.
Competent.
You know?
Yeah, that's right. You can put Fran at the beginning of any name, and it works.
Governor Fran Shapiro.
There you go. And then just one other thing. I mean, Frankie Louvu did have 2 sacks in that game. It's
good
a late.
Right.
He's a versatile player. He
plays
next to.
In free agency. Yeah.
I was gonna say, didn't you not like him?
Yeah.
I mean, now that the Eagles have Zach Bond, you don't need a Frankie Louvu. But Frankie Louvu plays as an edge rusher when they're in big dime. They take a defensive tackle off. They kick one of the edge rushers inside, and then Louvu and Dante Fowler are on the outside. And that's the other change they've made schematically, I think, is that Dante Fowler displays more. Like, he actually starts and plays. They were kind of, like messing around with like Cleveland Farrell and all that, and they don't really play him as much anymore. So, yeah, that's what I've got on.
So you're not super concerned?
I mean, I don't think I said that. I'm concerned about every game. But, the Eagles are only favored by, 3 points or something in this game? Which is a little bit surprising. It's like 3.5 or something like that. Yeah. I don't know.
Brian Robinson said the Commanders are the better team.
I mean, I heard him say that, yeah.
I think the other big thing...
He said they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, so the other big thing to monitor for this game from a personnel perspective for Washington is that Jonathan Allen could potentially return. They opened his 21-day practice window. He has not played since week 6. So this might be too quick for him to return. But if he's back, that's one of the best players on Washington's roster. So we will see about that. That was I think a little bit of a surprise yesterday when they started his clock.
No chance that Bryce Huff's going to play though, right? You don't think?
You know what? I wouldn't rule it out.
This week, really?
Well, I don't think he's going to play just because I don't think they have the natural roster spot for them to kind of put him in. But if you simply go based on the practice report, Bryce Huff would have been limited yesterday. Okay, so he's not
DNP.
Not DNP. But I think they're gonna exhaust his clock here. I think they'll use the 21 days or maybe 14 days, get him back for week 18, just to kind of get him primed.
See if a roster spot opens up naturally.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's
someone
not really,
gets Janarius Robinson disease.
Yeah. There's not a roster spot. I know fans were projecting last week maybe Britton Covey goes on IR. Britton Covey would have been a full participant in yesterday's practice. So Britton Covey's, unless there's a setback, is on pace to play again.
I mean,
Jalen needed him to just spend that game in his chain, and then once he was done wearing it, Covey's released and he can play again.
I just missed. That went over my head
because the chain was big. He's both saying Bozeman.
Oh, you're fixated on.
He's still fixated on the chain. Yeah,
it's a great chain.
Yeah,
it's a very big chain.
It's breed of one.
I cannot even.
By the way, what is?
I cannot even begin to guess the price of that chain. like people ask that kind of thing, and I'd be off by probably a couple of orders of magnitude if I tried to guess.
Yeah, I think what my guess would be $250,000.
I mean, again, I'm not even going to try to guess. Yeah,
I never had a chain, so I couldn't tell you.
I'm probably underselling it, right? It's probably more than that.
I don't know. Whatever it is.
Why doesn't somebody try to steal that instead of my bike?
Let's not go there because I think that has been a problem right now with quarterbacks in the NFL.
Sorry.
Here's
my question: do you think that
like the NFL sent us a security memo about these guys being targeted?
Do you think that you think that breed of one is a direct passive aggressive rejoinder to audience of one?
No, I don't. But good. I see what you're saying. I don't think so.
Is it will the Eagles' next franchise quarterback have to do something of one too? Like will it be Tony Robbins' power of one?
No, you see, because the fundamental difference is the audience of one was referring to God in the case of Carson Wentz. The breed of one in Jalen Hurts' case is referring to him. So
right,
yeah. So it's
but just for parallel phrasing,
because of the one.
If you were of one, what would it be? If you had to have a slogan.
If I was of one?
Yeah. A slogan of one.
Oh, man.
I'll think about it and get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about the audience of one versus breed of one Super Bowl? Could that happen? Is Mahomes injury?
But Mahomes was a full participant, and it looks like Mahomes is going to play. So.
Yeah, I guess injuries are so phony.
I do want to give a little piece of housekeeping because I've seen this in social media today when we've been teasing Governor Shapiro's appearance and Professor Selman's appearance in no particular order, is that Swooper will not be today. Swooper's going to be tomorrow because we are going to be in the Reading Terminal, and I can't wait to see everyone there.
Yes, and Fran will be with us there. You can put Fran in the middle of Fran Duffy, and it works pretty well. And Dana is going to be there as well, so we're looking forward to that. Come say hi at the terminal tomorrow. And we're about to get to Josh Shapiro in just a second, but first, a word from our sponsors. Got any prescriptions? Need a pharmacy? If you do, Rite Aid is the place to go. With a My Pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you can refill your prescriptions, schedule a vaccine, get personalized care recommendations, sign up for prescription notifications, and all you need to get started is a prescription at Rite Aid. Get started at riteaid.com/mypharmacy. Stop stressing about your prescriptions. Let Rite Aid refill them automatically. With the Rite Aid My Pharmacy account, you can enroll in automated courtesy refills. It's free, easy, and most prescriptions qualify. Talk with your Rite Aid pharmacist or sign up through your My Pharmacy account at riteaid.com. Restrictions may apply. You can even sync with other family members, so you don't have to make multiple trips to the pharmacy. Just one-stop shopping at Rite Aid. Transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid caring pharmacists are ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid you may need, including over-the-counter medicines, household products, cosmetics, and more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply.
The conversation at bedtime with my kids last night was about a form of financial responsibility. And if my story about the Tooth Fairy was not sufficient enough, you know what would be sufficient? would be going to TrueMark Financial Credit Union and getting a free Greenlight account. We all know how hard it is to win without proper coaching. If you have kids, TrueMark has the ultimate playbook for teaching financial responsibility with a free Greenlight account. The Greenlight app is changing the game, helping kids and teens learn how to earn, save, and spend wisely. They can set up saving goals, track their spending, and even get an allowance. I should say earn an allowance, not get an allowance. All right there in the Greenlight app. And here's the really cool part. Each kid gets their own debit card so they can make purchases and learn real-world money skills while you stay in control from your phone. You get peace of mind. They get the freedom to make smart decisions with their money. It's a win-win. It's like coaching your kid through their very own financial game, and for TrueMark Financial members, it is free. With the holidays right around the corner, now is the perfect time to introduce your kids to Greenlight. Get signed up today. Visit TrueMark.com/Greenlight for more information.
All right. On the heels of the Eagles winning the state championship last weekend in their victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, we had the opportunity to talk to the governor himself, Josh Shapiro. Let's watch and listen to that now. All right, what a pleasure we have now on the PHLY Eagles podcast. We are joined by the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. Now, my friend Zach here cares a lot about manners. Governor Josh, what should we call you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are stuck calling me governor or gov, but Josh is, great.
I think
too.
governor. Let's appropriately level set the power dynamic here. We appreciate you being with us, and we know that obviously Sunday was a big game. You were there in attendance. We appreciate that you do not make you don't hide that you are an Eagles fan. You're not trying to ride the fence here. So as you went to that game and you soaked in the atmosphere, were you Governor Shapiro or were you, Josh from Elkins Park? How did you experience that?
Well, first off, my name when I call into sports radio is Josh from Juniata, just so you know. So, but yes, it was a little hard to just kind of be a regular fan. I was getting pulled in a lot of different directions, but getting pulled in those different directions by Birds fans was just awesome. I mean, the environment was amazing. Out in the parking lots, with the tailgating, I got to do Eagles pregame live, which was a ton of fun. And then just being in the stadium. And I got to say, even the Steelers fans, Steelers fans travel really well. It was a great environment. And I thought Birds fans were pretty respectful to the Steelers fans, unlike if, Dallas were in town or something like that. But it was a ton of fun. And it was just great to be there. And I also thought it was a great win for the Birds. It answered a few questions that Jalen had been kind of nagging at Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I thought this was probably the most physical team we've played all season, and certainly the most physical team we're going to play in these final 3 games of the season. But this is playoff football. This is smash mouth football, and you got to be ready for that. And I think that was exciting. And I thought it was a great win.
So what's that tailgate scene, the tailgate scene like when you're the governor of Pennsylvania? You grew up in this area. I'm sure you've experienced tailgates before. How is it different? And what's the conversation like in the parking lots before that game?
I mean, look, it's totally cool. I was kind of mobbed by folks, which was really nice. And just having folks actually give a damn about who their governor is, the work that we're doing at the state, that's pretty cool. It's pretty special. But I must say we probably spent, 2% of the time talking about the work I'm doing as governor and 98% of the time talking about the game, which is what I prefer. And it was just great. It was just really exciting to see the look on folks' faces when I showed up at their tailgate and to be able to just interact with them as Josh from Juniata.
So you talked about, the changes that the Eagles had to make in this game. And I'm thinking about the Eagles passing game. Tell me how ham-fisted you think this metaphor is. I'm thinking about a football team as a working highway. So you've got the defense, which is humming on one side. You got the running game in one of the lanes, which is working pretty well. But there's like a crater in the passing game, and you got to fix it as everything else is working on. How difficult would that be to do in theory?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, fixing an airplane while you're flying it, right? I mean, by the way, that's governing. We're constantly trying to fix problems while running others. Look, I think to some extent, the chatter about the passing game going into that game against the Steelers was kind of overblown, to be honest with you. And I think that, Jalen Hurts is absolutely capable of, having a big game, with his arm. He showed that against the Steelers. I think he'll continue to do that. And we got to remember, we've got the best running back in the league, maybe the MVP of the league. We got to make sure he's getting his touches. I think what oftentimes gets ignored is the fact that we got the best offensive line in the league as well. And that is something we've got to be, continuing to just tweak and focus on and make sure those guys have everything they need. They are really, really special. I was actually with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson
Big
and
flex.
one of the former guys on the offensive line. Jason Kelsey this morning, we were giving out toys in South Philly to students, which was really awesome. But those guys are special and they need to be protected as well. So look, every part of this team is important. Every part is humming along now in a good way. And remember, we're 3 games away from a single elimination tournament, and we just got to do everything in our power to make sure every piece of the puzzle, every piece of the machinery is operating at full steam ahead and strength. And I think they are.
Well, I wonder what your perspective is on, the AJ Brown calling it out sort of, and the importance of having difficult conversations. I imagine that must be something that you have to do often.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always wish, no offense, guys, I wish the conversations wouldn't have taken place in the media, right? That said, it did light a fire under their asses, and they came out, and I thought in the first quarter they were aggressive. Remember, this Birds team's been playing from behind a lot. We're not scoring a lot of points in the first quarter. You cannot play from behind in the playoffs and do well, on a continual basis. You've got to be playing with a lead. And so I actually thought the aggressiveness that they came out with in the first quarter was really, really helpful, or really, really impactful, I should say. And showing that this passing game can work, both to AJ Brown and to Smitty, making sure that he got the touches he needed. So I'm feeling really good about these guys right now.
You mentioned Saquon Barkley. I know in your line of work, approval rating is a big deal often. It's hard to get a bigger approval rating in the state of Pennsylvania than MVP candidate for the Eagles, who grew up in Lehigh Valley, who went to Penn State and was a star there.
You think he's got a better approval rating than I do, guys?
That was my lead into the question. Yeah. What perspective do you have on Saquon Barkley, and are you willing to concede that he might be the most popular Pennsylvanian right now?
Hell yes. Look, Saquon is obviously having a career season. And another example of just how stupid the Giants are that they gave him up. And I'm so grateful that we got him back. I think what folks don't always appreciate, maybe they just don't know, is, he is Pennsylvania through and through. Grew up in the Valley, was an all-time great at Penn State. In fact, when I saw him the other day, we were talking about Penn State football in the big game on Saturday. I just think he's a special guy. He's a special guy on and off the field. He's clearly locked in. He's healthy, knock on wood. He's healthy, which is really important. And I'm just feeling really, really good about him as we go into the playoffs. You're going to have these stretches of the game where you just need to control the ball for 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time and just grind ahead, 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards each time. Saquon Barkley's great. I would also say don't sleep on Kenny Gainwell. I thought he had a really good game, and that's important for him to have that confidence as well.
You sound like someone who has maybe had a conversation with Nick Sirianni before, because that is his favorite player. They sort of joke with him about that. But I am curious, having encountered as many different leadership styles as you have, what is your take on the Nick Sirianni experience?
Yeah, it's hard for me to judge from the outside, right? I'm not in the locker room, but I tend to look at leaders in any field, business, politics, sports, you name it, media. I tend to look at leaders when they are facing adversity and see how they bounce back from that. Let's go back 10 weeks, whatever it's been, when we were 2-2, right? And a lot of folks were calling for Sirianni's head. And they were saying, get him out of here. And they were saying, remember, he gave up play calling, and is he really doing anything? What, can this guy really coach? And I don't pretend to have a ton of insight into what's happening in that locker room with him, but it is clear that he faced adversity and figured out how to turn it around, figured out how to motivate his coaching staff, figured out how to motivate his players. and get them rolling in the right direction. And so I admire that. Any leader who faces adversity and is able to come through it and come out stronger, I really do admire that. And it's clear that that's what he's doing.
I'm curious from a big picture perspective with sports. A smart person in politics once told me that sports is one of the few things that really brings us together. How do you see that? How do you see it in whether it's across the state of Pennsylvania, whether it's with different constituencies, the connective thread of sports?
Yeah, Zach, you're totally right. And I don't want to be political in any way here, but I think it is clear I'm stating a fact that our politics are pretty divisive right now. Right? I think if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, you feel that way. And I think you also probably feel, some division with your neighbors and a sense of cynicism at times. And I work every day to try and bring people together and find common ground. But I also work every day to find areas where we can have conversations or engage with one another where it's not as divisive. I think that there are a few things where you can bring people together and actually talk to someone who you might disagree with on politics or governing. Sports is number one. I think music and art and the outdoors are other things as well. Those are things that I value and I spend a lot of time doing. My wife and I, the First Lady of Pennsylvania, started a lecture series at the governor's residence where we are privileged to live as your governor and First Lady. And we do a lecture series roughly every quarter. And we focus on one of those topics, right? Something in history or sports, music, art. We invite all kinds of different people from the community together for reception and to hear a lecture or hear a presentation. And it's incredible. You get Republicans and Democrats, people from rural communities, urban communities, all coming together. Why do I raise this? Because the last lecture series we had, give or take a month ago, we had Jay Wright speak to us about leadership, about the way in which, his career trajectory went. And we use sports as a way to bring people together. Now, not everybody there was a Villanova fan or a Hoops fan or even knew a lot about the sport, but it was a way to engage people in different ways. I actually find that there's a lot more that unites us than divides us, but our politics and in some parts of our media are set up in a way to pull us apart. So I like to use sports, outdoors, music, things like that to bring people together. And when you bring people together, it's easier to solve problems.
Now, to circle it back to you as an Eagles fan, like you when you're watching a game, are you like a rabid Eagles fan? And what gets you more excited? A long touchdown pass, a long Saquon Barkley run, or are you like a defense first guy? You want to see this defense hit people, and this defense does hit people.
Yeah, I guess all the above, but I'm more going to cheer for the offense, but not necessarily the one deep play. But
you like the sustained excellence.
Yes, the kind of old West Coast offense, right? Drop back, get the ball out to 2.5 seconds, 6-8 yards. The screen pass where everybody hits the right block and you get a 25-yard run after the catch. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Just good, solid football where you control the ball for a significant part of the game and obviously put more points on the board than the other team. That's what I love. And I'll tell you, as cool as it is to go to the game, especially that Eagles-Steelers game, to me, there is nothing better than being in my sweatpants with my kids on the couch, yelling at the TV and just enjoying the company of my family.
That is the one thing we don't get to do because we're working on game days, and so we have some jealousy about that.
Right.
Well, we thank you so much for taking the time, Governor. I have one final thing. Well, two parts. I would be remiss.
Sure.
One, completely unrelated. How often do you get "Hello, Governor" on a daily basis? and then two.
Just yesterday, somebody did it.
I would be. That was for Zach. For the people, for the listeners among us who are entering 2025 feeling maybe a little bit politically nihilist, what is your advice for those of us looking for something, a positive way to channel that?
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously, first and foremost here in Pennsylvania, I'm going to be out there protecting your interests, your rights, and ensuring that you don't get left behind, left out, or harmed in any way. But I know that a lot of people feel that they're trying to figure out what do they do with these emotions, these feelings, these sentiments that they have. And I would argue that you should just do something in your community, something around you that engages you with your neighbors and that makes some positive change in your area. I was walking, talk about the outdoors. I was walking on a trail the other day with my wife, something we love to do and get out. And someone came over to me and kind of asked me a similar question. And I said, what are you passionate about? And they were particularly passionate about this sort of development in their community that they were working on. And I said, well, then get involved in that. Organize your neighbors. See to it that some change happens in your community. And then what happens is, A, you accomplish that task that's really important to you in your neighborhood. But B, you feel a little bit more in control of what's happening around you. And so I would just urge people to be involved in their community, continue to lift up their voices, and do something constructive. I know some people love to pick these things up and just post a bunch of stuff and make noise, but that oftentimes doesn't accomplish something. Get in the game and do something concrete where you're making an impact in your community. And that's going to make you feel like you've got some real agency and some real power in an environment where you feel a little bit uneasy right now.
Well, we thank you so much for that advice. Thank you so much for taking the time. And we will note that there is precedent for a Pennsylvania governor to be part of an Eagles post-game show. So if you're not too busy on Sundays and you want to join Vinny Curry, the invitation is open.
Man, I would love it. I got to do pregame live on Sunday sitting next to Jaws. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I grew up watching Jaws. So any opportunity I get to talk about sports in any format, I'd love to do it. So maybe we'll hook up on Sunday. We also need to spend some time talking about the Sixers and where we go from here with them, and and some other stuff. So I'm happy to talk about any of those.
You didn't have to bring us down. We were
I know.
So high.
I'm a huge Sixers fan, and I'm just, I'm just very, very frustrated right now.
Now you do speak like a real fan, so I think the people can appreciate that. Thank you so much, Governor. Hopefully we will talk to you again.
We appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much, and we will be back with more on the PHLY Eagles podcast just after this. All right, well, you heard the governor. Get in the game, he says. We're getting the game with Bet365. Let's talk about it right now. That's right. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year. With early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB, Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting. And today, they offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Zach, what do we got tonight? Broncos, Chargers, I believe?
Yep.
Probably going to be a boring game to watch, but you can spice it up.
I don't know about that.
It doesn't even affect the strength of victory, which is crazy. Almost every game.
It's a 9-5 team against an 8-6 team. Should be a good game.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's something to do, but
no,
when I add a little hooch,
football's always better than no football. But yeah, you can bet on that.
I'll tell that to the people getting concussed. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, when I was doing those bedtime stories last night, we did not talk about any upcoming home repairs, but if we had to, I would tell my kids what we would need to discuss, and that's C-Jam construction. Because if you have, if
you could have gone like the Three Little Pigs as the big bad wolf is blowing their houses down. Boy, could they have used?
Well, no, I was going to tie it into the financial literacy conversation. Like, if you have to be smart with where you spend your money, and C-Jam Construction is where to do it. It's family-owned home remodeler specializing in decks, bathrooms, and flooring. Their goal is to help their clients alleviate the challenges and frustrations that come with home remodeling. And this is also close to my heart here. They have a giveaway benefiting CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, from November 25th, which has passed us, through December 20th, which is tomorrow. So there's one day left in this. There's an online raffle for a chance to win a Yeti cooler and a Kelly green Saquon Barkley jersey. Every kid, I mean, I shouldn't say every kid.
I know someone who's not entering, man.
A lot of kids have the Kelly green Saquon Barkley jersey. It's a real popular item. Get yours in this raffle, and it benefits Children's Hospital. All proceeds from the raffle will go toward the Chop Online Toy Drive. Raffle tickets are $10 a piece. There's no limit to the amount a person can donate in one shot. Winner comes out on December 21st. People can enter by going to cjamconstruction.com/toy drive. Be sure to mention PHLY to receive 15% off when you call in 856-329-2933 about your next home project. See their full selection and learn more about the products and warranties on the website cjamconstruction.com.
All right. What did you think of the interview?
That was fun. I would tell the governor, you're welcome back anytime. I enjoyed that conversation.
Bad job by me. I put on that PHLY sweatshirt anticipating that I could keep the continuity and wear it again today, and then I forgot.
And some would say that your change of costumes during the show is Whoopi Goldberg-esque or Whoopi Goldberg-esque.
Yeah. People curious, Zach, how you square. You don't want to talk politics with that interview.
Yeah, we didn't talk politics, but that there are certain things that transcend politics, sports among them. But as the governor spoke about, sports can bring us together, right? It's one of the few things that is not divisive in the regard. It's divisive in terms of you're rooting for the Commanders, you're rooting for the Eagles, but we all can join in and enjoy Thursday night football, Sunday night. Saturday this weekend is going to be amazing. All the football games on. That's part of why I love sports. I used to say when I wrote for the Inquirer that the sports section was the only thing that every reader, not every, but almost every reader really cared about, right? And would kind of be interested in. So sports is very powerful, and I appreciate Governor Shapiro recognizing that.
Okay.
You excited about that Saudi Arabian World Cup coming up?
Saudi Arabian World Cup.
The World Cup is going to be in Saudi Arabia.
In what, 2030?
34. Yeah.
34, yeah. Yeah, I mean, am I excited for that? I haven't put much thought into it yet. I imagine, we'll see what the world's like in 2034, but I'm very excited for 2026, including here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I hope to run into Governor Shapiro at a game.
I hope he's okay.
You hope he's okay?
You're gonna run into him?
I hope to see Governor Shapiro at a World Cup game here. There's actually a game on July 4th, 2026, right? U.S. versus England. Or it could be U.S. versus England. Is that correct?
I don't think
we don't know. Yeah. No idea who
England hasn't even qualified yet.
Yeah.
No, but it could be.
It could be the U.S. versus Iceland.
England has to first qualify, and then there has to be a draw. So.
Yeah, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
The U.S.'s games are set, but
that's okay.
The other 47 teams have to.
But the U.S. are they playing in Philly on July 4th or no? I
don't think their locations are determined yet.
Gotcha.
I think that is a possibility.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be Japan, Turkey.
That would be great. We haven't been in the World Cup since 2002. So made the semis, but it's been a while.
But yeah, I appreciate the interview. That was great.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this matchup from the other side of the ball. But before we do that, let's talk playoff scenarios.
Yeah,
Professor, I know that this is your special time of year. Are you checking your social media metrics? Like, would we get a big spike in Deniz searches this time of year?
I don't know. I'm too busy pumping out content to check.
If I can be a professor,
I will.
You are a professor.
No. Hey, Professor, stand for a second. Defend you here. A pet peeve of mine is when people in the media corps clearly use your information, but then don't attribute it. Right? Like
pull a testator, as it were.
At this juncture, the scenarios are not like well known. If you're saying the Eagles can clinch the NFC East this weekend, you don't need to cite Professor Selman. The NFL puts that out. We know that. But if you're outlining the different paths to the number one seed, you're not calculating that on your own. You're clearly taking that from Professor Selman. So a call to the reporters out there. Give credit where it's due.
Wow. Listen, my dream as a child was to enlighten society about playoff scenarios, and thanks in large part to you guys, I've been able to accomplish that. And if people feel the need to crop a graphic I made and take my name off it and post it on Twitter, then at least it helps enlighten others. So that's all I can say.
All right. Well, why don't you enlighten this mass audience that we have here?
Yeah. So pretty simple in the following sense: the Eagles, in order to get the 2 seed, just need to win one more game, right? Like, just win any game, 2 seed is clinched. Now, for the 1 seed, the Lions absolutely have to lose a game. They play at Chicago, at San Francisco, and at home to the Vikings. The Vikings probably have to lose another game. I would say about a 95% chance that the Eagles will lose that strength of victory tiebreaker to the Vikings. Now, if you're interested in how strength of victory works, please check my Twitter or Blue Sky account. I prepared a graphic, a color-coded graphic with a rooting guide for the 27 games left that will determine the Eagles-Vikings strength of victory tiebreaker situation. And that graphic has all the teams the Eagles need to win in green and all the teams the Vikings need to win in purple. It has how many points each one's associated with. It's a very long shot. When you count it up, it might look like it's possible, but I would put it at around 5% chance. What that means is the Vikings also need to lose. They play at Seattle, at home to Green Bay, and then at Detroit the last week. Now, when people see this, a lot of people have said, well, the easiest path is the Vikings lose, probably to Green Bay, and then they beat the Lions the last week, and that way they'll both have a loss. The problem is, if the Vikings lose before Week 18 and the Lions don't, the Lions will have already clinched the NFC North. So the Vikings, at most, would be playing for the difference between the 5 seed and the 6 seed. I do not see a scenario where they would care enough about that to play their starters in that game. The Lions will be playing for the 1 seed. So it's just not, like, on paper, the Vikings look like the Lions' hardest game, but in reality, the Eagles need the Lions to lose before that game, because either if that game means something, it means the Vikings haven't lost and they can't both lose. Yeah. And then the Eagles would need them to tie, which would be fun. Sunday Night Football, Vikings, Lions, yes. And the Eagles need a tie for the 1 seed. That would be kind of fun, but it would also be very, very unlikely. And so we really kind of need the Lions to lose before that, either in Chicago. And I'm going to get an ulcer if I have to watch the Bears and root for the Bears again. So luckily that's at the same time as the Eagles game, so I don't have to watch it. And then they play at San Francisco. A rare case of me rooting hard for my boy, Kyle Shanahan. So there we go.
Yes.
And then odds-wise, right now, the gambling markets give the Eagles a 35% chance to get the 1 seed.
Okay.
And then it's 39% hosting Washington in the wild card round, 11% hosting Green Bay, 7% hosting Atlanta, 6% hosting Tampa Bay. Those are the highest likelihood scenarios.
So how do you feel about that?
I just think the bye matters so much. It's just such a big advantage. And as much as I feel fine about the Eagles against any of these teams, including the Lions, honestly, including at Detroit, the way that they're injured and all that. But man, the bye is so nice. Get to rest up wild card weekend, watch those other losers beat each other, and then get to host the divisional game and the championship game. I mean, that's the greatest thing as a fan. So
yeah, I think the home field advantage is a significant advantage this year. Like I wrote about today on allphly.com, particularly because of the Lions. I mean, Jared Goff is 6-7-1 in games played, 40 degrees and under in his career. That's a team that's playing 14 to 17 games in a dome this season. I am curious your perspective on, there's a school of thought that
this game coming up for them in Chicago is only their second game outside all year long.
Yeah. There's
and their home game against Chicago came down to the wire.
Yeah.
So,
there's a school of thought that you want to avoid Green Bay, and Green Bay would be locked into the team that plays the 1 seed if Green Bay wins in the opening round. Do you not pay much attention to that? Because the best Green Bay would do in that case is be the 6th seed, right? So You
mean playing Green Bay in the first round?
Yes. If Green Bay wins, they'll play the 1 seed in the second round.
So
if you're the 1 seed.
Yeah, so they'll win the 6-3 game, and then they'll play the 1 seed.
And that's the team you want to avoid, whereas you would rather play the 4-5 winner.
I don't know. There's a decent chance Green Bay would be the 5 seed.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if they beat the Vikings and the Vikings also lose to the Lions, then the Green Bay has the tiebreaker over them, and they would be the 5 and the Vikings would be the 6. In fact, that scenario we just discussed where the Vikings might rest people
Yeah.
and drop down to 6 that way. I think the odds of any specific team being the one that comes here on divisional weekend they're just too many. Nothing's like set enough to like worry about that. Even I'm not worrying about that.
Is Green Bay the team you're most worried about in the NFC?
Probably. Probably. Though, I don't know. It's hard to say. Part of me would just maybe irrationally worry about Tampa as well.
Yeah,
it just hasn't gone well, you know?
Sure.
Like, so until it goes well.
Yeah. Although A.J. Brown hasn't lost to Tampa.
That's true. A.J. Brown hasn't lost to anybody in a long time.
He didn't play that playoff game last year.
Yeah, the last time A.J. Brown lost a game to anybody that he actually played the whole game was Arizona last year. So it's been
about a 9.5-hour drive to Detroit. I think if the Eagles are going there for the NFC Championship game, we're gonna do a little road trip.
Wow,
make some content out of it. What do you think, Julia?
Who's we?
You know what's more likely
you,
than
me, Julia?
What's more likely than
maybe the governor?
Wait, do I have a say in this?
I feel like the Lions could get the 1 seed and lose that first playoff game.
They could,
and,
for sure.
You know, if they're all banged up and all that kind of stuff, and so then that opens the door for the second time in history that a team will have 3 playoff games at home. The Chiefs did it a few years ago, so like there could be 3 playoff games at the Link, which would be very exciting, but I don't know.
Think of all the
really
bikes people might get out of it.
Seriously, 3 shots to steal my bike, you losers.
Someone said in the chat, put the AirTag inside the seat of the bike.
And then I'm going to go after people and tackle them or something?
Well, you'll know where it is.
All you got to do is figure out where Saquon lives.
I know where Saquon lives. He's not taking he's not riding his bike.
We know you know where he lives. What percentage of the roster do you know where they live?
Ooh.
I don't know.
This is like Seinfeld. I feel like you've had this conversation before.
You know what? A lot of the young guys, I probably does. So I would say 60, 70%. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Creepy. All right. Let's talk about this matchup on the other side of the ball. And I think a reasonable concern, not even concern, but thought process for Eagles fans is we believe in this Eagles defense. This Eagles defense can stop anybody. But the variable of a running quarterback does bring something a little bit different to the table. They handled it well in that first matchup, but how do you feel about that? Is that a thing that sort of nags at you?
I mean, it's obviously always a concern, though the Eagles did very well against Jaden Daniels the first time. Now people were talking about his rib injury and all that. Did well against Lamar Jackson also. I mean, had some opportunities against this. Now, the Eagles defense is now up to 3rd in DVOA, just stepping back. I mean, we were sitting here after week 4 joking about how that really good performance against the Saints boosted the DVOA up to 31st. I mean, it's crazy to think that this defense was 31st in DVOA and looked like it on the field after that Tampa game is now up to 3rd. And I mean, I just love the vibes of this defense right now. I love the quote by Fangio in his presser this week. He said, "We have no control over how we get on the field or where the ball is, but we can control how we get off the field."
A quote that he said to the Stanford defense back 15 years ago.
And it was awesome. I mean,
I see Fran complaining in the chat that he wasn't invited to the Detroit road trip, but I believe he's going to be at All-Star games then. He's got draft work to be grinding.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting right here. I don't think I was invited either, Fran. So I don't know what to.
Can you bike
I don't know what to say. I mean,
if
no one steals my bike, I can bike.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I like that quote too from Fangio.
Yeah, that was really good. Now, there are a couple of moments from the last game, and this is like super nitpicky now.
The last Commanders game.
No, just the last Steelers game. We'll talk about the Commanders game in a second, where Brian Robinson said they shot themselves in the foot, and it really looked like they might have shot themselves in the foot before the game started. Like that's how they played. But we can talk about the Steelers.
I thought you were making a Brian Robinson joke for a second.
That's what he's, I believe, referencing. He keeps talking.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, all right.
Well, he said Brian Robinson himself said we shot ourselves in the foot, and we're the better team. Yeah. And when you look at that first game, you can tell we're the better team.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. Perspective is different from the field and watching. But Fran broke down the play where Reed Blankenship catches the third receiver from the other side, and that's happened a bunch of times this year. There was one play in that Steelers game. It reminded me of a couple of plays from earlier weeks as well, where it's like a 3-by-1 set, and Reed Blankenship has to decide whether to rotate down or not.
And you can sort of hear Reed Blankenship saying to himself, thank you to the people who are watching on television. Make sure that you watch the rest of whatever episode is going to be coming up on allphly.com. That's like it's like his internal monologue. You can see it popping on the film.
You got to get these TV people to open up a 90-minute window for the show.
Well,
that's a different question. All right. I don't know how TV works or what TV it even
Fast
is.
networks.
Or Windows.
Fast networks, yeah.
So Reed Blankenship has to decide at times. It looks like it's going to be cover 4. We've talked about this before. It looks like it's going to be 4 over the top, 2 high safeties, and then Reed Blankenship decides whether to rotate down or not. If he rotates down, it's going to be more of a cover 3. If he doesn't, it's going to be stay cover 4. When there's 3 receivers on the opposite side from him and one of them is running a crosser, a lot of times he has to have his eyes on that player and catch him rather than go all the way down to the flat. There was a play in this game where the Steelers ran Skoranek on a shallow and then Darnell Washington on a deeper over from the 3 receiver side. So they're both running overs. And Nakobe...
Although with Darnell Washington, it's more of like a heavy walk.
It's slow, heavy walk, whatever, but it's deeper. And so Reed has his eyes on him, and he's catching that over from Darnell Washington. Now, Nakobe Dean sees the Skoranek shallow, and he points, but he's pointing to nobody. He thinks Reed's going to be there, having already rotated down to the flat, and he's going to catch Skoranek. And Skoranek ends up being wide open, and the play gains 17 yards. Now, nitpicky. This was the 19th play of the game, and it was their first down. So, look, the first 18 plays were perfect, so there's nothing to say about it. Now, this defense is awesome. But I do think more teams will try to kind of play with these rules where the rules are so good and so set in place, and it's getting to the point now where you can just kind of tell, like, okay, this route's going to be matched by this guy. Cooper DeJean's going to run with this guy. Quignon's just going to erase his whole side of the field and all that. Teams are going to start to test this a little bit more. Now, Washington didn't do anything of the sort in the first game, so to kind of link it back to that, this Washington offense, if you remember, coming into Week 11, they were second in DVOA. Yep. They're now down to 6th. They've kind of gone down to the pack. And also, if you break it up, weeks 1 through 9, they were first in the league in EPA per drive. 10 through 15, that's over the course of their last 5 games, they're down to 16th. So they are back to the pack. Teams have figured out Jaden Daniels a little bit. I understand he has like the rib injury as well. But that game in Week 11 was check down city.
Were you just watching a different show over there?
No, it's our show.
Watching this show.
Our show.
Just on delay.
I can't read the comments. Yes.
Got to get some.
Why did you hit the volume button?
I heard a sound in the background. I didn't know if it was my computer or not. I thought it might have been my computer. So I clicked the mute button, but my computer was already on mute. Do you hear that sound in the background?
No.
All right.
I don't either. We also haven't gotten shot at this episode.
Well,
unlike the last 2 that I've been on. Okay, that game, Jaden Daniels, 70% of his passes traveled shorter than 5 yards in the air. It was check down city. Only a third of his attempts were to wide receivers. He didn't throw to Terry McLaurin against Quinyon Mitchell at all, famously. Those numbers of how many of his passes were short and how many of them were not to wide receivers were both lows for the year. So it's not like that's something that's been happening in other games. He was sacked 3 times. He scrambled 3 times. His longest scramble was just 7 yards. So to answer your question about the mobile quarterback thing, he also didn't have any successful designed runs. He had 2 quarterback counters. BG blew one of them up, and then there was the big 4th down play where they ran the pin pull that Zach Berman and Reed Blankenship stopped. The one thing they did.
Hey, was there anybody else who was huge on that play, Zach?
On the pin pull, Jordan Mailata.
Oh, Jalen Carter.
I'm sorry.
On the 4th down
Gotcha.
stop.
Sorry. Jalen Carter blew it up there.
Yes.
And you can
they were very confused. They had 2.
Is there anywhere we could read more about that coming
on
up?
allphly.com, hopefully tomorrow. It's gonna be a long night tonight, and I got
Carter
my
story.
son's concert tomorrow morning. But we'll get it done. We got some good stuff in that story.
They were very confused on that play. They had 2 linemen pull in different directions and run into each other, which made it a little easier for Jalen Carter. But yeah, that was a big play in the game. Now, the one thing they did schematically that some other teams have since imitated, the Panthers in particular, They came out in 21 pony personnel. And by came out in, I don't mean like the way the Eagles do, where it's Will Shipley for one play and you never see him again. It was 9 of the first 11 plays were like that, including all 4 on their early touchdown drive. They exploited the flats with Austin Eckler. Now, Austin Eckler is now on IR, but they will do this with Jeremy McNichols as the second running back as well. And there was a 34-yarder on the touchdown drive just leaking into the flat underneath 2 post routes, and Zach Bond just didn't cover him. I know you were talking to Zach Bond in the locker room yesterday, and he was talking a little bit about this 21 personnel stuff. In the second half, they went back to it, ran a pistol play action, both running backs in the backfield, and Bond just lost Eckler, like biting on the play action, and that went for 20 yards. So basically, all of their successful plays in the game came out of this like pony 2 running back stuff where they were actually using the running backs. The fact that Zach Bond
was all mostly in that same drive.
Well, but that 120-yarder was in the second half, and that was like one of their only good plays in the second half. So until the garbage time drive at the end, where it was like heavy Zach Ertz, who's also out in this game. He's in the concussion protocol. So now Eckler's gone, Zach Ertz is gone. In terms of what the Eagles did in the game, they were very heavy zone, just a couple of snaps of man, only blitzed 3 or 4 times. They only did 1 exchange pressure. It was very vanilla as a game. This last game against the Steelers was like that too, by the way. Now, Fangio on the rematch, he was asked like if you have to do different things. I don't remember who asked him the question, but it was like do you have to do different things because it's a rematch? And he said we might.
I think it was Merrill, maybe.
Okay, he said he might do a few things here and there, but if you do too much, you're making it harder on your own players.
Sure,
and that really fits. This is the first time we're going to see Fangio
the next 3 weeks
go against the team for the second time.
Yeah,
but that makes sense. Like that kind of fits. In that game, the vanilla sound coverage was good enough. Guys went up front. The rookie left tackle, Brandon Coleman, was beaten a bunch, and he had a really rough game last week as well against the Saints, and he's going to be out there to be beaten again. So I don't know. I'll take this defense over anybody, and I do think the Washington offense is going to come back down to the pack. Now, the last game against the Saints, Jaden Daniels, his longest time to throw of any game this year. He took 8 sacks and had 6 scrambles, so a third of his dropbacks. He didn't end up throwing the ball. He looked hesitant too. I mentioned Zach Ertz is in the concussion protocol. You know who they just signed to the practice squad?
Yes.
I know who they just signed to the practice squad. I know that our boy Alberto is in Indianapolis. So, Tyree Jackson.
Exactly.
I did see that.
Before there was Alberto, there was Tyree Jackson.
Yes.
Yeah. They'll do 12 personnel stuff with John Bates and the rookie Ben Sinnott, who I think Fran's a fan of him, right?
I like the Sinnott.
Yeah, he's compared to Kyle Juszczyk, I think Fran's note said about him in the draft, and yeah. So I mean, whatever. Terry McLaurin. I mean, we're not going to worry about Ben Sinnott. Terry McLaurin has been used on the right side more than before.
Whatever.
Going into that game. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, you got Slay on the other side. So, but going into that game, we talked about how it was going to be McLaurin against Quinyon Mitchell all night, and it was. And McLaurin wasn't even targeted against Quinyon the whole game. They are using him a little bit more on the right now than before. They're motioning him to the right. The other change they have is Noah Brown, who was their other starting outside wide receiver, is on IR now. I mean, that's a guy who was
serious
getting
injury, life-threatening injury.
Well, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Is he going to be okay?
He'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was a rib and then an internal.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, he was, to bring it back to something that matters much less than him staying alive, he was getting about 5 targets a game. So that's taking something out of the other offense. De'Ami Brown and Zacchaeus play a little bit more now. And Zach's boy, Jamison Crowder, is back. He's returning punts. And he's playing some on offense as well.
Jamison Clam Crowder.
I referenced on a podcast 5 years ago that I liked him, and now for 5 years, it's like I have 3 children: Reed, Sloan, and Jamison Crowder. I mean, it's like,
Fran is in the chat.
Crowder gets those financial literacy bedtime stories.
Fran is in the chat saying that it was Washington that compared Sinnott to Juszczyk and not him.
Probably because of Adam Peters.
So he's saying he probably
So is it Adam Peters or is it Peter Adams?
It is Adam Peters.
And Brian Robinson saying that they were the better team, they just shot themselves in the foot. You know that's going to be something they're going to want to tell, I don't know, Jalen Carter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sounds about right. I feel very guilty. I was getting buying some bottled water for the office I got duped here. I thought I was getting real size water bottles, and it's all these tiny little ones. Terrible for the environment, and now we look like we're drinking little tiny waters.
What'd you do with the online delivery? Is that what it was?
No, I went. It was at.
How'd you get duped when you saw it?
Because you saw it.
Yeah, they did a really good job.
They really made it look like it was a tall bottle of water.
Yeah. I saw Bo carrying them in, and it looked like normal bottles. Now,
and
there
I was
was
carrying
a big...
them in, and I didn't know until I was carrying them in, and then one of these fell out, and I was like, well, where did that come from? That's not what I'm holding. And I'm like, wait a second.
Did you see Michael Penix there?
No, I did not.
Do you understand the reference?
No.
He was he was in the Costco food court eating a hot dog when he found out he's the starting quarterback. That's a man who knows financial literacy or financial responsibility. I respect it.
Now, dolphins may be able to swallow that whole without choking on it. Like that could be one advantage environmentally.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's all I can really think.
Disappointed we didn't get to ask the governor about the tail discussion.
Yeah, he would have been.
Although I did appreciate the comment I saw that maybe the funniest position for the tail would be center, because that would to have to watch the quarterback deal with the tail.
Yeah.
On those under center snaps would be fun.
I'm ashamed to say that I did think about that while you guys were. Shout out to my friend Shalini from grad school, because the tail conversation reminded me of a conversation we had when we were supposed to be writing our dissertations. And we were
also for an offensive lineman, you would worry that the tail would would that count as a false start if the tail is wagging?
Only if it simulates the snap, like if it makes the same move it makes when he snaps the ball.
Okay.
I want to hear this conversation with Shalini.
Yeah. So Shalini and I asked the question. It was a different question because we weren't talking about football. It was if humans had tails, would they be like sexualized, and like would there be like would people wear like tight leather tail covers, with like just
would you have to cover the tail,
just the tip showing and stuff like that, that's a question, like would it be something that showing a little tail there, that kind of thing.
Zach, what do you think?
I'm a fairly curious person. I ask why a lot. I think about a lot of different things. I've never once in my life have thought about someone with a tail. It's never come up in conversation. It's never been like a thought at 1 a.m. in the morning. I've never thought about what if that person had a tail. So maybe I'm the outlier because you and Shalini have discussed it. You brought it up on, I think, 3 consecutive shows now. But like, I think we've spent more time on the tail discussion than we have on Saquon Barkley breaking the rushing record or something.
If you could have a tail, what kind of tail would you want to have?
Yeah,
like a bunny cottontail.
I have no thoughts on tails. I will defer to you on all tail conversation.
I was dying watching the show yesterday, and Zach just goes, "I don't talk tail."
Yeah, you got it in your head that it like just tails in and of themselves are inappropriate, and I don't know where that came from.
Probably from the expression "chasing tail," in which case I do not want to.
Chasing a tail with a tight leather cover.
Engage in said conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm taking I'm taking Governor Shapiro's cue, and you can answer the question how you want to answer it as opposed to like the literal answer to the question.
Tale of Two Cities.
There you go. I'm familiar with TALE.
A Knight's Tale.
I'm familiar with TALE. I tell bedtime tales a lot.
How about a bedtime tale about a tail?
No, well, perhaps if it's about financial responsibility, but yeah.
Tales from the Crypt.
No. Oh, I'm familiar with what that is, but yeah. No, let's keep rolling here. I think we've appropriated we've hit the tail quota for today.
Oh, it's almost like we're at the tail end of the episode.
Oh, look at that, Bo. That's why you're the best host in the city. Yes.
All right, let's check out the Super Chats. Chase Daniel Plainview.
We don't need to read this one.
Oh, yeah, we don't have to read this one, although he's focusing on the safeties and, of course, and twins. And then Barrett Roth says he's thought of some more names for the defense. The Fang Gang, Independence Wall and the Bell Ringers, Flying V's, Vic's Brotherhood, a.k.a. The Brotherhood. Vic's Chain at the Link. Green Slime, because slime covers all. Kid and Nickelodeon favorite. We appreciate your support, Baron. I don't know that we've hit the nail on the head on that one.
I got to say, Bo, I mean, I know, I'm very conflicted here because in 5 years, you've told me don't recommend stories, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like if I recommend it, you would want to pursue it. But I think this would be...
You know how this will go.
But I think that'd be a cool Wolf's Den, is to go around to the defense and say, you guys are a top 5 defense, but you don't have a nickname. What should your nickname be? And then you propose different nicknames.
Zach, only if you don't want something to be a Wolf's Den do you suggest to Bo to make it a Wolf's Den?
Obviously, I'm not going to do that.
By now,
why not?
You should know that.
Why not?
You know that I'm not going to do that.
I don't know what I'm going to do. How many years has it been?
It's much more likely that I'm going to ask them about the Tails now.
Oh, God. You should write a story about Tails. How about that? Yeah. You should do a big expose on Tails.
You know what? Maybe that's not your worst idea. All right. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Remember, live tomorrow at Reading Terminal. If you have the means and the wherewithal, come on out and join us. Say hi. We would appreciate that.
Show up early. Yeah, I'm gonna be there at noon, getting a cheesesteak from Uncle Gus, and
there you go.
Stick around until the show.
And also being there in person is the only way to tell if underneath the desk we're wearing pants or not. So
we will be wearing pants. Julia has a handy map up here.
We will be wearing pants. Julia has. I did not know how that sentence was going to end.
Julia has a map here of where we will
makes
be.
No such promises.
Of where we will be tomorrow. So yeah, it's a nice spot at the terminal. You can. I can't wait. I missed last year because I was coming back from Seattle. The NFL moved that game to Monday. This year I couldn't go to. I went to Anthony's show, and we're doing all our shows tomorrow, by the way, at the terminal. I went to Anthony's show at the terminal back before Thanksgiving, but I was not at the PHLY Eagles show. So I am eager to do a show with a live audience.
Now, after this show ends, we're going to head over to the Eagles locker room. What are you looking forward to doing, and anything you want to tease on the site?
Yeah, so make sure, by the way, Fran's opponent preview it went up this morning. I'm not just saying this because he's my teammate. It's the best preview content you'll find anywhere. Like, you are so much.
Deniz is sitting right here.
Well, it's a different type of.
Fran is like the only person.
It's a different type of preview content. It's
just like obviously true. And
player by player. Okay. You get into the it has relevant numbers. Although I gotta say, I do use Professor Selman's numbers because Professor Selman does have some numbers that Fran doesn't on there. I love the 3 keys to the offense and the defense's game plan, and then the color coordination's terrific because based on certain color designations, like if the player is a blue chip player, if the player is like a solid starter, that kind of thing. And then I have a quick piece up with just some notes and thoughts from the week now, and I am working on making sure a story's up tomorrow on Jalen Carter. I spoke to Clint Hurt for some background on Jalen Carter. I spoke to Jalen one-on-one about some things that are in the story. Jalen we had a real good conversation. He actually circled back to me the next week about it. Yeah, it was nice. Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and spoken of. So we'll work that into the story, and we have some good pieces coming up during these next few weeks leading into the playoffs that I'm excited about.
All right. Make sure you become a diehard. All that good stuff. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. Evangelize. We appreciate everybody watching and listening today. We appreciate the governor. Hello, Governor. Appreciate him stopping by to talk Eagles. Hopefully we can make that a running thing. And that's about it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thank you to Julia for making it happen. We will see you at Reading Terminal tomorrow. Pants or no pants. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.